Please welcome Tina Childress.
Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to go ahead and start so that we keep everything on time. I hope I can keep you awake after the lunch food coma. And I'm going to start out by showing you, I have a QR code to the slides. I'm going to let you take a moment to go ahead and take a snap of that. I'm a big believer in always providing slides because I know that for those of us that are deaf or hard of hearing, it's hard to look up and down and take notes and focus on the captioning or focus on the interpreters and all of that. Okay, if you still need some time to snap, can you raise your hand? Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and go on. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go on. The topic of this presentation is I'm going to be discussing different devices that can keep you safe at home. We know that people that have NF2, some people with NF1 have hearing loss, and that can result in, like not being able to hear things, especially at night or even during the daytime. So we're going to talk about what kind of options are out there. When it comes to having alerting options, people that have typical hearing can hear the loud alarms, but for people that are deaf or hard of hearing, some alternative ways to be alerted would be, auditory. And when I say auditory, it means that you'll hear an alarm, but maybe it won't be in the typical range of, people that have typical hearing. For example, did you know that for a fire alarm, a standard fire alarm that you can get for $20 at Home Depot, that frequency is about 3,100 hertz. 3,100 hertz is considered in the high frequency range. For many of us, as we start to lose our hearing, that's where we don't hear very well. Oh, and I should probably back up. Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Tina Childress, and I'm excited to talk to you today. I am an audiologist by day, and I'm also a late deafened adult. I have bilateral cochlear implants. I'm fluent in ASL. I'm choosing to use spoken English today. And a lot of these gadgets are gadgets that I've used as well. Okay, so going back to the alerting options. The second way that we might be alerted is something visual. So some kind of light, whether it's a strobe light, whether it's a flashing light. I don't know, does anybody here use smart bulbs or smart plugs? Does your house look like a disco? Yes. When things go off, right? I'll be on a call and, something will set off my alarm and it looks like a disco because I have everything set up kind of color-coded because that's the way I do things. Okay. And then the third way that we can be alerted would be vibrotactile or some kind of vibration. Okay. Can anybody guess? So there was a fourth way I guess I should talk about. This one is due to smell. And this is kind of a joke. This was actually a joke they called it the Ig Nobel Awards, like kind of a play on words with the Nobel Awards. And so the idea behind this smoke detector is that it emits a scent that will wake you up. Can anybody guess what that scent would be? I've had kids, they say it smells like a fart, right? Okay, I'll give you another hint. This is in Japan. What is a very strong scent that you might find in Japan? Ding, ding, ding. I heard wasabi. Nice. And so the joke is that you would get this, the scent of wasabi and you would set your nose hairs on fire, right? That's how you would wake up. Of course, here in the US, maybe we're not going to do wasabi, but man, what if we had a thing that you could smell bacon? Do you think you guys would wake up if there was a bacon scent? Okay. Now, there are some studies that actually look at what is the most effective way to alert someone. And I've listed them here. And what I found really interesting is that 17% of children that had typical hearing don't wake up to a standard fire alarm. Okay? Hearing children are not waking up. And especially because it's in short bursts. And then another study, the Dubois, Klassen, and Roby study, had 3 different groups. You had people that had typical hearing, you had people that were deaf, you had people that were hard of hearing. And they looked at those 3 conditions, whether it's something loud, whether there's a flashing light, whether there's some kind of vibrotactile notification. And for all of the participants, including people with normal hearing, including people that are deaf, we know that vibrotactile is the most effective way. Why do I say this? As I go through some of these PowerPoints today, or these slides today, I would suggest if you are looking for some kind of system that will alert you at night, especially when we take off our hearing aids and cochlear implants or our auditory brainstem implants, you're going to want something that has some kind of bed shaker. And I'll be showing you some different gadgets as we go through this. Some considerations. Some of these systems are battery operated. It's the thing that you can't turn off and it goes off at exactly the wrong time. And what I found when I was actually putting this together is that it's really, really hard actually now to find some of these systems for people that are deaf or hard of hearing that are battery operated. They're hardwired, which means that you may have to hire an electrician. Now, I find that not very equitable for people that are deaf or hard of hearing, that we have to go out and hire someone, but I'll talk about some resources here in a moment. Okay. When it comes to a strobe light, I think many people are used to seeing, like over here on my left, there's, the red fire alarm and it's a strobe. That's great. When you're at home, I've had people tell me, oh yeah, we have a strobe light alarm, but it's in the hallway so that everyone will be alerted. Well, if I'm deaf at night and the strobe light is in the hallway, it's not going to help me. In fact, I'm one of those people that you could have a disco party in my room with the loudest sound, disco ball going off, and I'm not that sensitive to sound or light when I sleep, but if you bump into my bed, I will definitely wake up. Okay? So, but the strobe lights, let's say you put the strobe light on a wall, but your back is turned to it, it's not going to wake you up. You might want to, if you want to use a strobe light, you may want to consider putting it up in the ceiling. Okay. Another thing that I found out, smoke alarms emit what's called a T3 signal. What does T3 mean? That's that 3100 hertz tone. And T3 means it goes beep, 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 pause. Beep, 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 pause. And a carbon monoxide detector is a T4, so beep, 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 pause. Okay? And that's how some people can tell the difference between the two. I really like this schematic talking about the different placements for these alarms throughout your house. I did add that little red arrow and the carbon monoxide detector pointing at the garage. Why? For some people in the deaf community may know that back in March of 2025, there was a couple, Frank and Marlene Turk, and they parked their car in the garage, and it was, one of those key fob kind of starters and, stop the motor kind of thing. So they parked their car in the garage, but they didn't turn the car off. Sadly, they passed away because of carbon monoxide poisoning. In the middle of the night because they left their car going. There's been some movement in the deaf community talking about, why can't we have something with the car manufacturers where if your car is not moving for a certain amount of time, then the engine will automatically turn off to prevent something like this happening. Okay. here are some resources for getting fire detectors. Not only can we not just go to Home Depot or Walmart, or gosh, even Aldi has fire detectors. Our fire detectors, our smoke detectors are a lot more expensive. And the American Red Cross, if you contact them, sometimes your local fire department, Camp I Am Me, those are some possible resources for finding smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. And I know that there are some fire departments that also install it for you. And they provide you with a system that has that bed shaker attachment. On the screen are some vendors where they are, where they're either deaf-owned or very deaf-focused in terms of the products that they have. At the end of this presentation, I'm also going to talk about I call it my resources. I like to make lists. So it is a list of my lists. And I just was working on this last night. I made a whole new list all about home safety, where you see some of the products that I'm going to be talking about today, and there's going to be links so that you can purchase them if that's something that interests you. And there are more vendors on that list that I just made last night. Personally, my favorite way to be alerted, especially when I'm traveling, because I travel alone a lot of the times, is to use my phone. So on my Android phone, I have sound detection turned on, or sound notifications turned on. And I carry this with me, and I'll talk about this in a moment. This is just a cradle for my cell phone. And the way that it works is when I get a sound notification. So this will be listening to all things all night. So I keep it plugged in at night. I put it in this cradle. It also acts as my alarm clock. When it vibrates, and I'm sorry, this is not plugged in, this will flash and this will vibrate. Now, do I have to set it up so I'm not waking up every time I get some kind of spam email or text in the middle of the night? Absolutely. But, you can set up your phone to have different routines so that it will let things, like if my kids are going to text me or email me in the middle of the night, then my phone will go off. Okay. But it will also listen for sounds. And you can also do the same thing if you have an iPhone. You just need to turn on sound notifications. So does anybody here use their watch to wake up? Okay. When do you charge your watch? During the day? Because I always charge my watch at night.
I have chargers at work. I charge at work.
Okay, so the comment was she has chargers at work, so that's when she's going to charge it. That's smart. Yeah. It's for some people, the vibrating watch is not strong enough, right? How many remember BlackBerry? The old Blackberries? That thing was so strong. I remember I put it on the table. It would vibrate off the table, right? I feel like now some of the phones are a little bit weak compared to the old Blackberries. But that's how some people will also wake up in the middle of the night. These are some products that I would recommend. So the first one is by a company called First Alert /BRK. And on the screen is a device that's a separate carbon monoxide detector and smoke detector. But when I was putting up links last night, I noticed that they also have a combo one. So that's the one I put on my list. And what's really cool about this, it's hardwired. And you can get several of them and kind of chain them together so that you can put them in different parts of your house. There's another one by Gentex. Now, this third one is a device called the Loud and Low. And what separates the Loud and Low from typical, or from some of these products I'm talking about, one, it's battery operated. Two, the frequency, or like the pitch where the sound is, instead of being at 3100 hertz, which is difficult to hear, It's at 420 hertz, which is a low pitch sound. And for people that have hearing loss, sometimes they're still able to hear that low pitch sound even without their devices on. Okay. The third one that you see on here is by Bellman and Symphone, and it's a very modular kind of system where you can get different pieces and put them together, and there's usually a home base, and that one is really good as well. The Life Tone is a device. You see that black bubble on top? That black bubble on top is the microphone, and it specifically is listening for the T3 signal. It does not detect a T4 or carbon monoxide signal, but it will listen for fire, and then the bed shaker will go off and it'll light up, and you'll see the text that says fire. The Sonic Alert HomeAware 2 hub is another kind of modular option where you can pick different components and it will all go to that kind of home base. And then we also talked about the mobile devices. Weather alerts. I don't know about you, but for some reason, I feel like all the tornadoes that come through central Illinois, which is where I live, come in the middle of the night. So I'm watching the Weather Channel or listening to our local meteorologists. I know that there's this storm coming, and I don't go to bed until 2 or 3 in the morning because I know that we're getting this weather system coming in the middle of the night. Weather radios are really important to also have. And you can get it either in the form of kind of a standalone weather radio that has text, or many of us also have apps. How many people here download a weather app or get the weather alerts on their phone? Okay, that is also helpful. But again, if it goes off in the middle of the night and you don't have something like this cradle, how do you know that it's going off in the middle of the night? Silent Call is a manufacturer also of some of these kind of standalone products. The device on your left is a receiver that you can take that along with you. The middle thing is kind of the hub. And then the third piece is something that you can plug into a weather radio. If you didn't know, NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also is the entity that puts out these radio alerts. And I know through NOAA, a very popular brand of weather radio that's out there is called Midland, which I'll talk about here in a moment. And I do want to point out that if you contact your state deaf and hard of hearing commission, and if you go to that home safety list that I just talked about that I made, there's a link to all of the state deaf and hard of hearing commissions. And the reason that I recommend that you reach out to them is because they may have some resources for where you can get a free weather radio. One manufacturer is called Recom, and when you go to that the handout, if it's underlined, that means that it's a hyperlink, and it should take you to their website if that's something that you want to do. And you see that they have different systems that are there, and they have accessories, things like flashing lights. Oh, here's the Midland one. This is what I have, and I love it because it's got a flashing light, so if I'm awake and something is going on, I'll see it in the background. It also does have a bed shaker accessory, which I think is very important. I went ahead, if you've never signed up for weather alerts before, I went ahead and did the hunting for you. I'm one of those people that I'm always trying to find resources and try to share them with people, because why would I want to do this in a silo? So I have directions on how to do that if you have an iPhone or if you have an Android device. FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, also has tips for staying safe, and you can get that app, or the National Weather Service. Bellman and Symphone, again, is that modular system. And it's so funny because I'm taking my pointer and I'm pointing at this thing that looks like an egg. That little egg is actually a sensor. And what it's sensing is when your phone lights up. Like when you get a notification and your phone lights up, that will set off the bed shaker with the system. Now, this cradle that I have is kind of a standalone system. It doesn't connect to anything else. It just, senses when my phone is vibrating because of some kind of notification. They also have something that would be, a system that you might want to keep at home because this is also modular. And you can tell the difference because that cradle is green. And that will be where you can hook in the fire alarm, a baby crier, all kinds of things, doorbell. Will go then to that system. And then here's the standalone one that I was talking about, the RF200. I like it because I can charge my phone. I can plug in a USB to it. It's very portable, and it makes me feel safe when I'm traveling. I know that this topic is not about traveling per se, but I've also used this as a backup when my alarm clock dies or something goes bad. There's a company that's called Square Glow, and this is another modular system. This is a deaf-owned company, so I like to talk about them. And it also has different, sensors, things that can connect. And the idea is you have these kind of like squares throughout your home that will light up. It's not vibration, but if you're awake and light is something that you'll use as notification, it's nice to have. One thing that they have that I think is also really cool is they have this emergency SOS. I'm going to talk about this here in a moment, but caregivers, if the person you're taking care of is deaf or hard of hearing, or if you're deaf or hard of hearing, taking care of someone else, having access to knowing when they're calling you is also really good to have. And then these smart home technologies, like I mentioned, my house looks like a disco when things are going off. I have it set up that if the light is red, that means fire. If it's blue, it's tornado. If it's like coming from my phone, like an alarm to do something, it's typically green. I have the Alexa system at home, the Amazon Alexa system at home, but of course you can also hook these in with Google Home, the Google Pod, the Apple Home Kit, and things like that. I like to use the Amazon Echo Show because it has the video screen on it, and it also has captioning. So if there is any kind of notification or any kind of spoken like alert or something like that, then I will see the captions that you can turn on in the Amazon Echo Show. Here's where I talk about these caregiver alerts. Does anyone here take care of someone else? Whether it's your children or your parent or your grandparent, okay? Having access to some of these caregiver alerts, I think, is really important for our community. It can be either something that's, very manual. There's like physical buttons and physical things that you wear. There are other systems that now go to an app so that, the person that needs help might still press a button, but then you get the notification on your phone. It might go to your watch. Or if your phone is in a cradle, then your cradle will go off. And it's been really great knowing that these things are available. I'm actually moving in to go live with my mom. She's older. Her vision's not great. She's fallen a couple of times. And I, as a deaf adult, late deafened adult, I worry about how am I going to know if my mom falls, if I'm in the shower or I haven't put my cochlear implants on yet. And we are definitely going to be getting one of these systems when I move up sometime this fall. But fall detection is my biggest fear. If you are taking someone that maybe has dementia or Alzheimer's, if they leave the home, How are you going to know that they, have wandered off or something like that? It's good to have access to that knowledge as well. Remote health monitoring. If someone has a condition like they're prone to, having heart problems or something like that, that can all be monitored by some of these systems. All right, medication reminders is really good. Some of these are just, like you press a button and either you hear a really loud alarm or maybe a light will go off. Some of them also have vibration, like a pager that you would wear. Okay. And then, of course, there's, the life alert. How many remember the commercial? I've fallen and I can't get up. That's what some of these systems can also do. They can actually connect with a call center who will then send over emergency personnel or something like that. On the screen, you'll see some different systems. It could just be one-on-one. I like the systems that actually have like multiple buttons that maybe you can keep throughout the house. And then there's typically some kind of hub that will tell you, like you actually have zones in your home. So you'll know like zone 1 is the bedroom, zone 2 is the kitchen. And depending where the button is, you will get a notification of where that person is. So you can go directly to that area of the house. This is a company called the Smart Caregiver Alert System. This one is very digital and again, very modular. There's all kinds of things. There's sensors that you can put on your doors or windows that will let you know if maybe you have an intruder coming in. That's another fear of mine, is that someone is going to break into the home. And my mom is also kind of hard of hearing, as she's elderly. And I'm afraid that, what if someone tries to break into our home and we don't hear it? So it's nice to have that peace of mind. Other technologies that I thought I would bring up, I get a lot of questions about, I'm a deaf mom. How am I going to hear my baby in the middle of the night, right? And man, it's a lot different from when my kids are now 23 and 18. I can't even imagine if we had this stuff. I don't know how our kids survived. This is something called the Owlet Dream. And this is a booty. You actually put it on the baby's foot and it will detect movement. I mean, babies move, right? Unless you have them kind of all swaddled. I used to do this presentation with my husband where it says, baby crying. And then the next line says, Matt wakes up Tina. Then Tina says, why are you waking me up? You're already awake. And then the last line says, it's the third time the baby has cried, but the first time I woke you up, right? In the middle of the night, we are not, I'm not hearing anything. So that would have been really great to have. How many people here have left their faucet running? Deaf people, hearing people. Okay, that's always something that, if I ever build a home on my own, every single faucet is going to be an automatic faucet. Either you have to touch it or it's going to be motion sensor. Not only do I leave faucets on, but I've left my hairdryer on a couple times. Has anyone ever left their hairdryer on? Oh yeah, it was bad. I left it on in the morning and luckily I went home for lunch. I went to the bathroom. I'm washing my hands. I put my hand on the counter and I thought, why is my counter hot? And it was because the blow dryer had been going off for like 4 hours. So thankfully nothing happened. But smart leak detectors. This is an example of something that's not designed for people that are deaf or hard of hearing. These are for people, for example, if they have a summer home or a winter home and they're afraid of things like their pipes bursting or something like that. And what this is you get this detector and you put it underneath the sink. And if it detects, the water level rising beyond where it's supposed to, you will actually get an alert to your phone. So it's Wi-Fi based. And then on the screen are some examples of things that will detect if your door opens or if your window opens. I'm glad they didn't have Wi-Fi motion detectors when I was a teenager, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Let's talk about emergency kits. What should you have in your home in the case of an emergency? On the left are just standard things talking about water, how much water you should have, how much, food that you should have, things that you should plan for, any kind of medical necessities like Band-Aids, first aid kits, something like that. There's a video in ASL that talks through all of that, and the link to that video is at the bottom of the page. Other things to think about are batteries. What would we do without our electronic devices? How many people here have an external power bank for when their battery dies? Okay, right? The little charger brick. Does anybody have one that's solar powered? Good. Because, at some point, that charging brick is going to need to be charged. And on the screen, that orange thing is one that I have. I love it. It's a little bit heavy, but it's so worth it to have it in case, when the power goes out, the power goes out. You can't charge your charging brick if you have no power as well. So having that solar powered option is really good. The one on the right is actually a hand crank. What if it's late at night? What if you're not getting enough sun, or, you had it upside down or something like that? It's a hand crank that will actually generate some power so that you get enough juice so you can make a short phone call or a short text or email. Okay. Specifically to people that are deaf or hard of hearing, it's important to also think about some of these accessories to have. Does anybody here use a dry aid kit or something to keep their hearing aids or cochlear implants dry in the event of things like you're sweating excessively or you accidentally get your devices wet? These are things that will help draw out the moisture. Tip from an audiologist: never, ever, ever take a blow dryer to your device, because even if it's on a low setting, you have the potential to possibly melt some of the components, okay? It's also important to have things like your chargers. I always have a backup charger because sometimes the main charger that you have can go bad. If you're bilateral, meaning you are bimodal, like if you have devices on both sides, typically you'll have two, so it's always good to have two of these as well. This is an example of a portable charger for rechargeable hearing aids. And all of the rechargeable hearing aid one, if you didn't know, some of them actually have a power supply, like a external power bank in the bottom of it. Or you can also plug it into a power bank, which is great, because I have a love-hate relationship with them. I get that it's better for the environment. I bet it's safer. I get it that it's safer because there's no batteries. But as an educational audiologist, there have been too many times where the kid comes to school and their hearing aid or even their cochlear implant batteries are not charged. So it's always good to have that as backup. Oh, this picture. Has anyone ever dropped their phone into water? Okay. Do you guys know the rice trick? The bag of rice trick? When I travel, I always have a bag of rice and a Ziploc bag. It's uncooked rice. Yes, I'm Filipino and I like rice, but this is uncooked rice. And the purpose of having that is if my implants were to drop into the toilet or something like that, then you take it out, you shake it as much as you can, get all the moisture out of there, and then you put it in this bag of rice and hopefully it will draw out any extra moisture and you'll be back on the air. If you're a hearing aid user, there's tools that I love this. It's like a Swiss Army knife for cleaning out earwax and things like that. There's just a bunch of tools that are there that can keep your ear molds free. And then another great accessory to have, this is a bulb. They'll call it like an ear mold blower. And what this does is you stick that on the top of the tubing. Like you have your hearing aid, you have the tubing, and you have your ear mold. When you separate the tubing from the ear hook, you put the tube on the top and it blows out any moisture that you have or if you have any kind of debris. Okay. Many of our systems for cochlear implants also have these completely waterproof options. Hearing aids and cochlear implants nowadays are already designed to be water resistant, kind of like our phones. You know, if you were to drop your phone into like a very shallow amount of water, it should still survive, you know, after you shake out the water. Cochlear implants and hearing aids are designed that same way. They're resistant. If it's very short and not that deep, it will, you know, resist getting ruined. However, if you're going to go swimming for a long time or something like that, all of the cochlear implant companies now have these waterproof options. What if something happens and you don't have your cochlear implants or your ABI or your hearing aids, or it's so noisy that even with your devices, you can't hear or understand what's going on, okay? On the screen is a link to what are called ASL safety and emergency communication cards. These are ones for ASL, but there are also ones that are available where you point to things like I'm in pain, or, you know, I need an ambulance, or, you know, or the cop can point to something and say, I need your identification or something like that. It's always good to have backup because there may be times with, you know, when you just are not able to understand what that other person is saying. I know that McKinnon talked about this also yesterday, and I'm a big fan of using speech to text apps. So show of hands, how many people here have iPhones? Okay. How many people have Android phones? Okay. That's pretty typical. It's what I've seen in almost every presentation that I've done. It's about like 4 or 5 to 1, iPhone to Android. Okay. For those of you that have iPhones, how many of you have the speech to text feature enabled? How many have no idea what I'm talking about? Okay. Can I show it to you? I love to do this part. Okay, everybody pull out your iPhone. We have some time to do this too. Go to your settings and then scroll down to accessibility. And then you are going to go to hearing. Then you should see a section that says live captions. Click on live captions and then turn the toggle to the right so that it's green. And you may not be able to see it on my screen, but now if I'm talking, you will see what I'm saying on my phone. Okay, if you click on the bottom or the button in the upper right-hand corner with the 2 arrows pointing like this, it will fill up your whole screen. Okay, you want to make sure that at the top that microphone is checked. If it says like iPhone, that means you might have earbuds or your hearing devices hooked into it. If you want to just be able to hold it out like this and it captions what you're saying, you want to make sure microphone. Okay, and you also want to see listening. Okay, so now if you're trying to communicate with someone that's deaf or hard of hearing and you're having a hard time, you can just pull this out and use it. Now, I'm going to show you another trick. On the same screen where it's filling up the whole screen, if you click the arrow that's pointing to the left, you'll then notice this little icon that's on your screen. And if you didn't know, it kind of floats around. You can move it anywhere on your screen. I guarantee that button will be exactly where you don't want it to be. Okay? Let me show you a quick way to get rid of it, but also to bring it up. Go back into your settings and then scroll and go back to accessibility and scroll down all the way to the bottom where it says accessibility shortcut. Click on accessibility shortcut. Make sure there's a check mark next to live captions. And then you're gonna, and what the accessibility shortcut is, if you triple click on your side button, it will make that icon pop up and also go away. Okay? You may have to give it permission and select, yes, live captions is what's going to be associated with that accessibility shortcut. But, this has been such a lifesaver for me, where if I'm using this iPhone and, I'm doing something on my iPhone, someone comes up and they want to chat with me, and if my ears are off or something like that, I can just triple click and caption the conversation. Okay, pretty cool. It's nice to be able to get rid of that little button sometimes. Okay. There are some other options for captioning on iPhone, which I've listed. In the upper left-hand corner is a link to a list. This was actually my very, very, very first list that I ever made, where I started collecting information on apps and then categorized them into different, different sections like audiology, captioning, listening therapy, things like that. And that's on there. I know some people that they just use their notes app, and they, press on the microphone and they use that for speech to text. Another app that's out there is called NAL Scribe. It's free. It does a pretty good job as well. If you have the Nagish app, which is an app that captions phone calls, they have a feature where you can also caption live speech. If you look at like the keypad in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a microphone, and it will also caption speech. So those are options for iPhone users that are free. If you are an Android user, I will only recommend Live Transcribe, because I feel that is the best one. Android users, does anyone not know how to turn on Live Transcribe? You don't?
But a bunch of people have tried to help me today and they can't, so maybe it's my fault.
Okay, so the comment is that some other people were trying to help her, and she thinks that maybe it's her phone. I'm happy to talk with you offline. Okay, I'm happy to walk you through that. Okay, let me back up. For live captions, not only does it caption conversations that you have, it will also caption phone calls, FaceTime calls. It will add captions to videos in media like podcasts that don't have any kind of captioning or transcript. Okay. For Google Live Transcribe, same thing. You can do speech to text. It will also caption phone calls, video calls, media. But one thing that I really love about this is that it also has sound notifications. And on the screen in the bottom left-hand corner, it's difficult to read, but there's little boxes that are talking. You'll hear things like crowd noise or applause or music. Now I have to tell the story. I was home. My cochlear implants were off. I have my phone by my computer. McKinnon, you were talking about a stand yesterday. I definitely have one of those near my computer. And my phone is sitting up in it. I'm typing away, and I see a notification come through. And it said, ukulele. I'm like, what? Ukulele? And I turn around, and sure enough, my kid had come into my bedroom and was serenading me with their ukulele. But for me, what was so amazing about it is it didn't say guitar. It didn't say cello. It actually recognized that it was an ukulele. So I'm like, if it can pass the ukulele test, I know that it's good. There are other apps that are out there that work on either platform. One of them is called Make It Big. When I travel, I don't use my voice. I actually don't put my cochlear implants on because I actually like not being able to hear things in a noisy airport or on an airplane. The other part of it is, as soon as they hear my voice, they assume that I can hear. And they won't, let me know if there's a gate change or if there's a delay or anything like that. I like Make It Big because you can actually save different messages that you use. This is one of them. It says, I'm deaf, please speak into my phone's speech to text app to communicate with me. I have another card that says, I'm deaf, please let me know if there's any changes to our flight, and things like that. I think I also have one, for Starbucks, I want whatever coffee that I like, okay? Another app that iPhone users like to use is this app called Otter. Otter is just more accurate. It does a lot more things, like it'll tell you who the speaker is. It'll indicate different speakers. It can help you take notes. It has AI built into it. It's free up to 300 minutes. And then above 300 minutes, you have to pay for a subscription. And for some people, that's not an option. But Otter is pretty cool. You can also use it on your computer. And it's so funny. This is another example of an app that was not designed to be for accessibility. It was actually designed for reporters and for people that do interviews to this is the other thing about Otter. It records the conversation, okay? And in some situations, that may not be appropriate to record the conversation. So I like Otter, but that part of it kind of makes me pause a little bit. Another app that you can use is called Ava. It also can caption, live speech. If any of you ever have conversations with people that speak another language, there are some apps that are free that are great. Google and Microsoft both have excellent apps that will translate speech into another language. And what I like about both of these is that it actually flips the screen, meaning we could be face-to-face having a conversation. I can speak into my phone. They can read it on the other end instead of me having to hold up my phone or them having to look over my shoulder. The other thing that it will do, let's say that they have difficulty reading, then you can press a speaker and it will read it out loud for them so that they can hear that. This is the link to my website where you can find a lot of the resources that I'm talking about today. There were a few more things that I know I wanted to say, and I put it here in notes so that I wouldn't forget. This is the list of my lists. And one thing that I added last night again is I added a list about home safety products. But the other thing that I added, or not added, but that's on my list that I wanted to tell you about, is that there is a list about wireless microphones. So McKinnon yesterday was talking about the Bluetooth microphone that was out there. And I have this one, McKinnon, that has 2 microphones. And then last week, I found out about a system that actually has 4 microphones that can hook into a speech-to-text app. And the way that it works is there's like a receiver that's down here at the bottom, and it plugs into the bottom of my phone where I charge it. And then these 2 microphones can connect to it. But then when I found out about the 4 microphone option, I thought, oh my gosh, that's fantastic. So yeah, so there's a list and links on that as well. So McKinnon, can you come to the microphone so that the captioning can hear you? Oh, he's going to bring it to you.
All right. I actually have a quick question about that. Are those
Yeah.
the DJIs? What manufacturer of the microphone are those?
I believe the manufacturer for the 4 microphones is Boya, B-O-Y-A. And I'll add that to the list today. I just found out about it last week.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it's, and the 4 microphone system. So like this one that I have with 2 microphones is like $30. The one that has 4 microphones, I want to say is like $137. But imagine you're having dinner with friends and there's 4 of them. Each one of them can have their own microphone. Now, It's not going to indicate who's talking yet. But if they say, this is Tina talking or this is Bill talking, then you'll see that come across in the captioning, which I think is pretty cool. The other thing that I wanted to tell you about is I am part of an organization called ALDA, which is the Association of Late Deafened Adults. We have a few people that have NF2 that come to this conference. This year, it's in Denver. It's October 15 through 19. And it's, if you go to ALDA, ALDA.org, you will find out, you can find information on the conference. I'm actually the planning chair for this, and I would love to see many of you. Families are welcome. Oh, one of the topics that someone was talking about was, how do you communicate if you have one spouse that's deaf or hard of hearing and the other spouse has typical hearing? How does, what are some best practices or some strategies that you can use for better communication? I'm pretty sure we're going to have a panel about that at our conference. All right. And I still have 8 minutes. Yes. Can we get the microphone?
I can speak pretty loud.
You know what? I love you, Dad, but in the deaf and hard of hearing community, we have a hashtag, use the mic.
Okay. So
yeah, because the captioning also has to capture your voice, and your voice will not be loud enough for that.
Understood.
Thank you.
Just a quick question about ALDA. Is that in your resources? If I click to that link, will that information be there? That meeting that you're having in October?
Information about what?
The ALDA?
Oh, the ALDA meeting? No, it's not on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The other, it's not so much a question, but are you familiar? I know medications are a big issue. One thing that made our life easier was using this company called Hero, which is a medication dispenser, which not only dispenses the medication, but notifies me. My daughter uses that, and it keeps pill counts. It lets me know when I need to reorder. If it's not taken, it notifies me. And Christine, are you at all familiar with
No.
that?
Now, are you saying the word hero?
The company is called Hero. It's a device the size of a coffee maker.
Okay.
And it dispenses up to 8 medications. You can change the frequency if the doctor changes the medication right on the app. So I can do that from New Jersey when she's in Boston. So it's just incredibly useful.
Wow. And is it just spelled HERO?
Yeah, that's the company we use. There may be other companies, but that's the one we use. It's not particularly inexpensive. You rent the machine, but it's amazing, the technology.
Thank you for sharing that.
Did you?
Yeah, Christine.
I just want to say it lets my dad really bug me with text because he asks me every 2 minutes that I take my meds. So for any parents in the room, if you want to bug your children, you should get Hero.
There's another question behind you.
Just a quick question, quick thing. Could you put that opening QR code up again?
I sure can. Any other questions about the content? I'll be here until this evening. I take off again tomorrow, so please feel free to find me, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I'm going to quickly go back to the QR code. And again, this is the QR code that has a PDF of this presentation. Okay. Rima has a question over here.
This isn't a question really, but more of something I'd want to add, like not really a techie thing, but just kind of like a tool of the trade, I guess. I don't know if any of you guys, you were talking about like tips in airports, and I would just highly recommend freeboarding if no one does it. It's just, I always freeboard for peace of mind because it's less noisy. I go back and forth with the notion of like not using my voice because I feel like you said, sometimes people don't believe how deaf I actually am. because I don't have a deaf accent. But at the same time, I feel like it's easier for me to advocate for myself if I'm using my voice. But so I always kind of make it known. Like I go up to the desk, I point at my implant. I'm like, hey, I'm deaf. And I do sort of kind of play it up with, even though I'm using my voice. And I just find that pre-boarding, you don't have to deal with when it gets noisy. Frankly, it gives you easy access to store your luggage without everything getting busy. And also if you have balance issues like many of us do, it also makes it easier with not having to deal with like the throng of people. So I don't know, it's just kind of something I wanted to add to that, since it kind of goes hand in hand with like the tech devices in the airport.
Thank you for sharing that. I do that too. I actually checked in for my flight on American, and it asks if you need any assistance because of a disability. And they actually group it into mobility, hearing, blind, low vision, which I appreciated because there have been some times when I've flown where I say, yes, I have a disability and there's a wheelchair waiting for me. And I feel bad because that means someone that needs a wheelchair doesn't have one, right? The other thing, okay, we're going to talk about travel a little bit. If you didn't know, there's kind of a movement, if you will. Has anyone here ever heard about the sunflower lanyard? Okay, so the sunflower lanyard is, it's literally sunflowers on a lanyard. And what it's supposed to do is to make an invisible disability visible. Whether it's, you have anxiety or you're deaf or hard of hearing or what have you, you can order it on their website, I think it's called Sunflower Project, or some airports actually have them with their guest services and you can pick it up. And that's another thing you can show to the desk agent so that you're able to pre-board. I mean, one of my little cards on that app that I was showing you earlier that says, I'm deaf. This is what I do. I'm deaf. Can you please let me know when my group is boarding? And pretty much 9 times out of 10, they'll let me pre-board. Okay. All right. Yes, comment over here.
Okay, I don't know if I'm speaking too loud. Am I okay? Okay, I don't really have a question, but I just want to, in response to the person who was just asking about, the experiences of telling somebody that you're deaf, but you can speak very clearly. All the experiences you just had, I am 100% in agreement with you. So it's nice to know that I'm not the only one who does that same thing where sometimes I'll just tell them that I'm deaf, but I don't tell them I can speak because it's a whole issue of them not understanding. Like they can't make that connection that just because I can speak, they can't grasp it. I still can't hear. And when I say I'm deaf, some people still think if they talk loud enough, it's like, no, I hear nothing. You cannot amplify 0 and expect to get sound. There's just nothing there. And so thank you for your comment because I completely understand what you meant. You?
All right. Another comment or question?
Just speaking as a clinician, I really appreciate the presentation that you gave today. I wish we had more clinicians in this audience so that we could help our patients that are experiencing deafness. I think from a clinical perspective, sometimes the focus is too much on medical interventions and not helping patients adapt to hearing loss. So I just wanted to thank you. I'm going to share your slides with all my patients.
Thank you. And my understanding is that the reason that this is being videoed is that it will go on a YouTube channel. I don't know if we're able to share that link. Oh, McKinnon, go ahead.
I have an aesthetics question. So I'm just confused when I kind of dove into the world of deaf technology and accessibility. Why is everything so ugly? You know what I'm saying? Why are all the devices so ugly? Why does it look like I have an alarm clock of a 5-year-old in my adult bedroom?
Right. Do
you know what's the reasoning behind that? They just don't have to try because we need them?
speaking as an engineer wannabe, that was my major before I switched to audiology, I'm going to guess that the reason there's so many buttons and that it's so bulky is because it's typically doing stuff other than just being an alarm clock. And so it's kind of like hearing aids, you know, the more features that you have in a hearing aid, the bigger it kind of has to be. And I think aesthetically, we can make things look better for sure. And, you know, maybe we can talk to some of the manufacturers about something like that. But they are bulky. Like that Life Tone, I think it's a great concept, but that sucker's heavy. Like I don't carry that with me when I travel because it's really heavy, but it's because it has that functionality of actually listening. And I need to be cut off because my time is up. And thank you guys so much for your attention. Feel free to find me.